Hello and welcome to the Watch Kaki channel, where we bring you all the good and honest watch reviews. If you haven't done so, please subscribe to my YouTube channel because I've got new videos uploaded every week just for you. In today's video, we are going to do a full review of this Orient Kamasu that I unboxed a few weeks back, and this one here belonged to the latest series, and I think during the launch there were like 4 models, and this belongs to the limited edition one. So this watch here is kindly on loan from our boutique. Thank you very much for kindly loaning me these watches to do my video reviews. So according to Orient, the official word is that this new series, they sort of follow vintage inspired design cues and all that. So they've also included this bronze plated version. Looks more like a champagne colored coating or plating as opposed to a bronze. I think bronze actually looks a bit more orangey, but this one here to me feels more like champagne plating. And I must say this one here is done very nicely, because you know, many times when you have PVD or IP coating, you know, it just looks very shiny and then ends up getting plenty of smudge and fingerprints and all that. But this one here, I'm very impressed actually, because it's done nicely, brush finishing, and it doesn't feel like a fingerprint magnet. So I'm very impressed with the way Orient has done this. So the reference number for this watch is RA-AA0813R. Alright, so it's a bit too long for me, so I'm a very simple-minded person. I'm going to call this one the limited edition Kamasu version 2. I think that's easier to call this watch. So at the time of this review, this watch here has a list price of Singapore dollars $479, but you can buy this one here from our boutique, and I think it goes for around $380. Alright, so all you need to do is smile, you know, speak nicely to Mr. Eric Lee at the our boutique, and I'm sure he'll give you a really good price. We call this the brother or bro price. So it is important to note that despite this watch having a 200 meters water resistance, it is not ISO rated. So I'm not too sure what it means. Right? To me, 200 meters is 200 meters because I think it's way too deep for me. Alright, the only time I go close to the waters is when I do the laundry. Okay, that's what real heroes do in Singapore. Right, in Singapore, men, you know, very manly guys, heroic guys, you know, they do laundry and all that. So that's the deepest I've tried diving with my watch. So this version here, the limited edition one, it comes on a really nice vintage leather strap. The other models in this run, I think they're more standard. They come with stainless steel bracelet, and we've got like the green one, the blue one, and also the anthracite. And they call this series graduation dial, but in reality it's more like a Fumi dial kind of look to it. So very different from the first edition of Kamasu when you have the sunburst or sun ray. So I've zoomed in the lens just a little bit as I talk to you more on the specification and the build quality. So this one here, I would say the case design, the build quality, everything is exactly the same as the Kamasu, the one that was launched 2 years ago. So that watch, I would say, is a runaway success for Orient, because you know, you've got things like sapphire crystal, hacking, hand winding movement, and you know, the best part of it is that this one here is priced very sensibly. So now typically the Kamasus, they go for around 250 Singapore dollars, depending on, you know, sale, voucher, and which vendor you're buying the watches from. But I would say that's excellent pricing, you know, for a watch that has got all these features: sapphire crystal, you know, reliable movement, hacking, hand winding, and all that. Sure, it's not a premium watch, but I think in terms of value for money, I don't think you can find that many watches that give you so much value for money. So back to the new Kamasu. So we're looking at the case of just under 42 millimeters. So the exact measurement will be 41.9 millimeters case size. The thickness for this watch is also just under 13 millimeters, around 12.9 millimeters. So it's got a lug width of 22 millimeters. Now that was one of my main complaints with the Kamasu. We'll see if, you know, I still feel that way today, The Kamasu also has a really short L to L measurement, so this one here comes in at 46.5 millimeters, thereby making this watch very wearable, especially for those owners with smaller wrists. I think you'll be very happy to know that the Kamasu suits you very well. I'm just going to run you through some measurements that are not listed in Orient's website. So this one here has got a bezel size of around 38 millimeters, give or take. So I don't know where to measure from because it sort of slopes upwards and narrows down. So I took the measurement from the end of the bezel here at the very top here. So it measures around 37.8 millimeters, and it's got a crystal size of 31 millimeters. All right, so all these readings, they don't point to a very big watch. Okay, so to end off the measurements section, it's got a crown of 6 millimeters, and this is also one of the main complaints that I have with the Kamasu. The crown is just way too small, and I don't think diver style watch or diver watch should have such a small crown. And again, as with all the Orient Kamasu series, this one here is powered by the in-house F6922 movement. So I believe it is more or less the same movement or very similar movement to the Seiko 4R36. That one from the Seiko Turtle where you got the day-date complication. So, you know, same functions, same power reserve and all that. So I think they are actually more or less identical. And now I'm going to move on and talk about the case design as well as the build quality. And actually, like I mentioned earlier in this video, there is no difference between this one, the new series, and the original Kamasu, but I very much prefer something new over here. Right, that is, I prefer this brush finishing here. So let me just bring it closer to the camera here. All right, so in the old or the first generation Kamasu, you will see that the case side is polished. All right, and there's really nothing to shout about when it comes to the polishing given to the Orient cases. So over here, I very much prefer this brush finishing. All right, like I said, the watch is no longer a fingerprint magnet. I'm not too sure if the stainless steel versions get this treatment, but I'm very happy to see it offered here on this limited edition. And for this limited edition, it also comes matched with a really good quality leather strap. Okay, it's a little bit stiff here. This watch here is brand new, so I believe it's gonna, you know, season out really nicely, but the quality here is not too bad. The strap is pretty thick, almost 5 millimeters, and I think it thins down to around 3 millimeters closer to the tip here. So overall, I would say this strap here matches the bronze and champagne case very well. Overall look is just spot on, you know, this vintage look. At the same time, it looks a little bit more expensive than what the price tag would suggest. So with a watch at this price point, I would say the Kamasus, they are definitely, you know, in the entry level category. So you can't really expect very good quality finishing. You know, you don't expect Saratsu polishing or anything like that. But I would say you're getting pretty good value for money. All right. So even the bezel action, I don't think anyone would have anything to complain about this one here. It's a really nice 120 click bezel, and most importantly, everything lines up really nicely. No misalignment and all that. And good news for those who are put off by the dodgy crown in the Orient Kamasu. Alright, so I think in my earlier video regarding the Kamasu, one of my big complaints was regarding this crown here. So over here, the crown wobble has been reduced dramatically. Alright, so very little crown wobble here, and I think this is not an issue anymore. The previous one I had, the burgundy dial version, I think the crown action was just crazy. It was wobbling very crazily. For a while I thought I was buying a Russian Vostok diver or something like that. So this one here, no issues at all. There's still some problems when it comes to rethreading or screwing down this crown here. So sometimes you can miss, all right, the screw gauge and all that, but I think at this price point, you know, you shouldn't have that many complaints. So now I'm going to move on and talk about the dial design here. So of course, the biggest change between this one and the older series, Kamasu, is the use of round markers. So the old Kamasus, they have this stick or baton markers, and this one here has that round markers. And of course these markers, they are all applied. Okay, they are all applied, and I think this gives a nice touch as opposed to many diver watches at this price point. They always have painted dials and all that. And yet another new feature or difference between this one and the older Kamasu is the use of a bi-color bezel. So the entire new series now has a two-color bezel, two-tone. So this one here has red and brown. I think the blue one would have light blue versus dark blue, and light green versus dark green. Whereas the older Kamasu series, they have one color bezel. But I would think this is a matter of preference. Some people prefer a simple looking bezel, but this one here may have their own fans and all that, so depends on which one you like over here. Alright, so perhaps one big change that is not stated anywhere in Orient's marketing material is this dial here. Okay, so the dial finishing is actually different from the older Kamasu. So I'm just going to bring it closer to the camera. So if you take a look here on the dial, right, you might think that these are like smudge on the crystal, but I assure you these are not. Right, so you can actually see there's a bit of a texturing going on the Fume dial. All right, I apologize for this ceiling light over here, but you can see from where the light lands, there's a very nice texturing going on, almost a grainy look to the dial if you look carefully. But from afar, it looks just like any other sunray or sunburst dial, Fume dial. But when you go close up, you will see that, wow, there's actually a pretty nice texturing going on. So I would say this one here is a pretty nice touch. And now I'm going to switch off all the lights here, and let's see how the Lume here performs. And boom! Alright, so I would say it's not too bad, right? So it is not as bright as Seiko Lume, but I think there shouldn't be any complaints about the Lume quality here. It's bright, and the Lume plots are reasonably big. The Lume pip here is also nicely done, so I think that this Lume here is pretty decent. So coming back to the studio here, we have a mock wrist shot of the Kamasu on my 17 cm wrist. 17 cm, that's about 6 3/4, 6.8 inches. So, well, all in all, just a small wrist. And you can see that the Kamasu fits really well. Right, really short L to L measurement, 46.5 millimeters. Case thickness, overall thickness is not too bad, just around 13 millimeters. And overall, I'll say the Kamasu is a very good size and really makes a very good daily wearer. And next, we're going to do some size comparisons between the Kamasu and some other dive watches I have in the studio with me today. So the first watch I'm going to compare against the Kamasu is this Seiko Turtle here. Alright, Turtle is a very popular dive watch among watch fans out there, and alright, no prizes for guessing which is the bigger watch. Alright, the Turtle is very much the champion when it comes to size when compared to the Kamasu. So in terms of case size, case thickness, alright, just way bigger than the Kamasu. So I thought this is also an interesting size comparison between the Kamasu and the BB58. So this one here is widely known to be a very small watch, 39 millimeters, and the Kamasu is 42 millimeters. But just take a look here. Alright, you wouldn't think there's very much a difference in terms of size. Alright, so I guess that's largely because the Kamasu has got this case design where it sort of, narrows as you go upwards here towards the crystal and bezel, whereas for the Black Bay, it is like a slab side construction. So in the end, when you look face on, the actual bezel size is actually around 38 or so. So I think visually there isn't very much difference when it comes to sizing between these two watches. So all in all, I would say this new series here will please many fans out there, especially those who already like the first generation Kamasu watches. Alright, so this one here provides a bit of difference in terms of different dial marker designs and new case finishing and all that. But at the end of it, I think this is more or less preference. If you ask me, I actually prefer the Gen 1 Kamasus because I think with the round markers here, you know, these markers, they look really similar to a very famous dive watch made by an R company. So I don't think that's necessarily a good thing. So Gen 1 Kamasus with the baton or stick markers, I think they had more individuality. So my vote would be, you know, for the Gen 1 Kamasus, especially the forest green and burgundy versions. But over here we are looking at some very nice details here when it comes to dial finishing, this grainy texture look here, and you know, together with the foamy dial, I think these are pretty cool features to have in an entry-level watch. So there you have it. That was my full review of the Orient Gen 2 Kamasu. I think it's a very clever attempt by Orient to milk on the success of the original Gen 1 Kamasu. I mean, come on, these watches, I would say they are runaway success, very popular, you know, good pricing, good specs, good size. I would say it's pretty good quality as well. So it is right for Orient to do something like this, you know, to add on new color variations, new dial designs and all that, but still using the same build quality, same case and all that. So, you know, really full marks to Orient for coming out with such designs. This is the Watch Kaki from Singapore. I will see you next week for more watch review videos. And this is George. I'm gonna say goodbye for now. Bye bye.